And welcome to the Striped Onion Show, where we peel them back good. And now to our host, the man with the plan, Sergeant Peel.
All right, SOSers, we are back at it. Let me tell you, we've got a great show today. We've got a good friend of ours from the Midwest. She's a state trooper. She's one of them highway dogs, so to say. I can't remember what they call them. Big bears, Papa Bears, whatever they used to call them on the CB. You know what I'm talking about. But she's phenomenal. Trois Maloney with the Missouri State Patrol. She's a great peer. She's a great leader in the CISM community. She's a great resource. She's friends with a lot of us on the East Coast and in the Southeast. We met her a few years ago at a PCIS, a post-critical incident seminar in South Carolina, and little did she know she actually became an attendee. I'm starting to get into her story, though, so let me stop. She's probably going to talk about that here in just a second. So before we get to that, do me a favor. Share this across your social media platforms. And I say that with intent to tell you that whether it's the old social media platforms or the new social media platforms, pay attention to what we're doing with our social media platforms, because we may be changing up as well. We are pro law enforcement. We were pro fire, pro EMS. You know, we're pro American, and we know that we might have some people not liking us very soon. We know that in the back of our mind. We hope that doesn't come to that, but if it does, we're prepared. We'll move. But I will tell you right now, we're not going to go quietly. The word's got to get out. We got to take care of y'all, just like the community takes care of us. The community loves first responders. Guys, don't forget that. They truly do appreciate first responders. I don't care what the media says. I don't care the super, super small percentage of bad apples we have in our profession. It's of the smallest of all other professions. Don't forget, we are the good guys. So with that being said, let's get right into this interview with Trois. Hey, Trois, how are you doing? It's been such a long time since I've seen your beautiful face. How are you?
I'm good, Sarge. How are you doing?
I am doing well. I'm doing well. We're through the holidays. We're getting through this pandemic. I swear, I wish it'd hurry up.
Me too. Me too. It's been a challenge, but we're just keep on keeping on around here in good old Missouri.
Yeah, that's right. Like I said to my SOSers out there, this is one of my friends from the Midwest. She's with the Missouri State Patrol. She's a sergeant, done some time. You've been over there for coming up on 2 decades, right?
That's pretty close, yeah. And a little bit more with the state. I worked for the Division of Family Services prior to coming to the patrol. So I've actually got about 21 years with the state.
So we're sneaking up on retirement, ain't we?
Yes, I'm actually starting to count that number. I've got just about 5 years till retirement.
But you haven't put the app in your phone yet, have you?
I haven't gone that far because I still love what I do. So I'm thankful for that, and I've got a great group of guys that I work with. So I'm good. I'm enjoying it.
But let me go ahead and get rid of the rumor. It is okay to put the app on your phone. I'm happy with my job. I love my job, but I'm telling you, I've got the app on my phone.
Fair
However,
enough.
I'm inside 3 years. I'm just over 2 years to retire. So
no kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Good for you.
I'm definitely looking forward to it. So,
yeah. You know, I think it's important for us to remember that, you know, especially guys like us, right? We've had a good career. But you know, it's the way it works, right? We get to that retirement age, we pass that torch off.
Absolutely. I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree 100%.
Yeah, and enjoy retirement, right? I want to be the person that, you know, lives a long time after retirement and, you know, tries to take every dime from the state that I can.
I think that's the standard for, I mean, cops do pour a lot in. They do pour a lot in their
Absolutely.
It's not just the career, but it's also their families are pouring into it. I mean, when it's time to retire, and nothing against those friends, like The Doug Hicksons. You remember Doug? Doug, 42 years in law enforcement. Nothing against it. Hats off to him for a great career, but I'm not going to do 42 years.
I couldn't even imagine doing that.
And I love my job.
I love my job too, but I can't imagine doing that many years. I had a captain that just retired, and he had 36 years when he retired.
Wow.
And
again, hats off to him, but
absolutely. And he was phenomenal. He was great to work for. However, he came back and saw us, a month or so ago, and he's been retired now for about 5 or 6 months. And he said, I don't know why I didn't do it sooner.
I hear that all the time. Now, the one thing I do hear, we're seeing a lot more today, and I would assume you would agree. We're seeing a lot more today where you're seeing these guys that are peaking up on their retirement years today versus even 10 years ago. And they're like, I'm listening to the ones who retired 10 or 15 years after they could have, and they're actually taking advantage and jumping out when they should. And, it's a mental, it's going to be a mental struggle for one, but it's a mental support thing because there's a lot of stuff you take with it. And, you know a little bit about my story, and I know a little bit about your story, and we're going to talk about your part here in a little bit. But you got to have an exit plan, and I didn't bring you on the show to talk about the exit plan from law enforcement, I promise. Because I've had a few people on the show already who just retired or have retired, and then we're going to have the people on here like BK who's probably going to glorify retirement, and you know what I'm talking about. But
absolutely.
Just take a quick minute, introduce yourself to those who don't know you. Tell them what you like to do in your spare time too.
So my name is Trois Maloney. I'm a sergeant with the Highway Patrol. As I said, I've been on 18 years with the state, a little over 20, 21-ish. I have a son who's 28.
Well, wait, what?
Yes, I have a son who's 28, and he lives in Montana. He grew up here in the Midwest, but moved to Montana about 2 years ago. He's a golf professional, so he spends the bulk of his time playing golf.
Which I think I remember you talking about being in Montana this summer or sometime this recent last 6 months or so.
Yes, we were there in August. And it's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. But he was 9 when I became a trooper. And it was, it was tough, but he did great with the changes and everything that kind of came along with that. So anyway, he's 28. He's out in Montana, and I'm, as I said, just closer to the retirement age. But I've realized as I've gotten to that retirement age that it's important for me to be in a good frame of mind when I retire and be able to still enjoy life. So one of the things that has helped me is my hobbies. And my biggest hobby is fishing, which always strikes people funny. But my dad had 2 daughters. I have an older sister, and he raised us to enjoy the outdoors, and fishing is what we did with Dad. And he took us to do all kinds of fishing, but trout fishing is our real passion. And so that's my hobby, is fishing and camping. And so that's been one of the things that I do. And I'm looking forward to being able to do a lot more of that when I retire, and especially out in Montana, because I'll be sure to spend a lot of time out there in the warm.
You know the guy. Yeah, I know, right? It can be cold out there. You know that guy.
And I'm not a cold weather person, so I'll go out.
I'm saying where you're at can get cold too.
Yes, it does. It does, but it's manageable.
There you go. So Andy Carrier, you know Andy Carrier, right?
Sure.
You've heard about some of his fishing stories?
No, I don't know that I have.
All right, so you need to call Andy and just tell him and say, look, tell me about these fishing stories that Sarge told me about, because that's going to start a whole conversation that you're going to need to have with Andy. So I'm going to throw him under the bus right now. I've already had him on the show a couple episodes back, but we got to the end of the show and he started talking about his fishing stories. And I'm like, Yeah, I know a lot about you and muscle cars, but you and fishing, I just don't see happening. So, in fact, with you specifically, I could see you fishing before I could see Andy fishing. That just
Oh
don't.
boy, that's funny. I'll have now. Didn't he retire recently?
He did. He did. He done grown a beard too. He's got the whole beard going on, and I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like you have to do one of two things in law enforcement to grow a beard. You have to either go into narcartics or you have to retire. That's the rules. So
Well, I guess I'm out on both of
I
those.
was about to ask you. So when you going to grow a beard? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. So a little, I was going to add this about me. So fishing and camping, and I am in a relationship. My boyfriend and I have been together for about 6 years, and he too loves to fish. He also has grown kids. So, and he works for the Postal Service, but he's about the same amount of time till retirement. So we're really looking forward to, just jumping in our camper and going wherever the wild wind takes us.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
one thing that we are planning in this house as well. We love to camp. We love to get outdoors, whether it's the beach, the mountains, the lake. We don't care. It's just kind of whatever suits the mind, and that's just my way to separate. So I know where you're at with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So one of the other things I was going to add in there, though, that I always try to talk to people about when, they say, tell me about yourself. So, being a trooper is what I do and I love it. But, I think other than my son, one of my biggest accomplishments in life has been getting involved with peer support and having found really something that I feel very passionate about. And then it comes very easy for me to get in there, and whether it's help people by being a peer or making sure they have peers to help them, or by teaching other people how to be peers. So I know that we're going to talk about that, but it's something that I'm very passionate about, and I've realized that that's something that I want people to know about me, or know that I'm passionate about, is peer support and helping other people.
Yeah, absolutely. We are going to talk about that. But before we talk about that part, and I know you kind of hit on some highlights, the one thing I want to make sure we do is you didn't just kind of say, hey, I want to do peer support. You got into it for a reason, or something pushed you into it. You want to take a minute and tell us about how you got involved?
Sure. So it's kind of a twofold situation. So it started off, I got involved in it, and I'm moving to a different room because my boyfriend just came home and I know he's going to do some honeydew projects for me.
All right.
So it started off because I was in the Troop C area, which is near St. Louis, and we were finding that there was a great program over there for people who had been involved in critical incidents. It was not affiliated with any one agency. It was made up of people from all different agencies, and anybody could utilize their services. And so I got involved in that and just was in awe of what they were doing for people. And I'd gone to some training and I got my certification through them to be a peer, and I was going out and I was helping. And then I found myself being in a critical incident. Now, I'd been a trooper, obviously, for several years and had worked critical incidents, fatal crashes, homicides, death of children, unfortunately, a multitude of horrific things. But this particular incident happened on July 4th of 2012, and I was off duty. And I was in unfortunately, a tumultuous relationship with a man who had once himself been in law enforcement and also been in the military. And I do think that he had some severe issues with the things that he had been involved with. And I never want to say that he had PTSD, because I don't know whether he did or not, but I do believe that he had suffered emotionally because of the things that he had seen and been involved in.
Absolutely.
But we had been involved for a few years off and on. And the relationship just really kind of went up and down constantly. And in 2012, the relationship got to the point where it was evident that he and I were both probably going to be better off if we would just cut ties and each go our separate ways. And in my attempt to try to do that, unbeknownst to me, he was in a pretty bad place in his life, and I didn't know that. And understand, I'm not excusing what his behavior was, but it ended up where he assaulted me in my house and attacked me quite violently for a while. I don't know how long, because I've chosen to never look at the case file, but that assault went on for a while. And in the end, he attempted to kill me with a gun. I did manage to escape my own home. He was still in it. And as I exited my house, he actually committed suicide in my house.
God bless you. And I'm sorry that you had to go through that, but I know you've been a strong warrior since then, because I met you not long after that. So
that's right. And so what's so bizarre about this was in 2012. And I will say, and even though, again, I had been involved in peer support, I didn't really recognize at the time that, like, I needed peer support, right? But I had it from these guys that I was working with. And I say this all the time about the guys I was working with. They were phenomenal. I didn't even realize they were doing it, which is great, right?
That's the genius behind it.
Exactly. And I just could not have asked for any better people to help me in so many ways. So fast forward, and I end up getting the job in Jeff City as an instructor. I moved to Jeff City, and I come up here and I don't know anybody. But the guys I'd worked with down in southern Missouri, where I was at when I had my incident, I'm still friends with them. I'm still talking to them. The peer support group that I'm involved in over in the St. Louis region, they're still in contact with me. They're still, reaching out to me and what have you. And we decide at the Highway Patrol, like, hey, we need to have something. Like, why don't we have something? We're a big agency. We have a lot of people. They have a lot of bad things happen. Why don't we have something? So me and another girl, she's a lieutenant now, we suggested, via the channels, right, all the paperwork, hey, we need to have some kind of a program. And so they said, okay, do all the research, get all the details, write it up, and we'll see what happens. So we started making phone calls, and somebody said, hey, down in South Carolina, there's this PCIS. You should go down there and check it out. So we asked if we could come down there. Me, Michelle Kuhn, and Mike Crace. We said, hey, we were on this team in St. Louis. We're the ones trying to do all this research. Can we come down there and check this out? And the patrol said, sure. You got to drive down there. And PCIS was so gracious. They said, we'll pay for your hotel rooms. We're like, fantastic. And away we went. I mean, we had no idea what we were going to. And the kicker was, we went down there thinking we're going to be observers, right? Because we're wanting to bring this back. We're wanting to figure out how to do this in our agency. So we jump in this minivan and we drive to South Carolina. And we had the best time. It was a great road trip. But anyway, we get down there, meet just some phenomenal people. And the very first day, we're at PCIS as observers. And the very first day, I meet this gal, and her and I begin to talk. And she says, why are you an observer? You need to be a participant. And I'm like, what? And so we start talking. And I said, holy smokes. Like, this is so much more than I realized. And on top of that, I realized I wasn't the only person that had gone through this kind of thing. Now, obviously, some of the other people hadn't experienced the same thing, but it was similar. And I all of a sudden didn't feel like I was on an island by myself, and I could talk about it without any worry or question about whether people were, making assumptions or rushing to judgment or anything. I could just talk about what I'd been through, right?
Yep.
And I'm like, again, this is amazing, right? We need something like this where I'm at. So we spend the 3 or 4 days there. I think in total it was about 4 days. And we drive back home, and the whole way home, I mean, we're talking about everything, right? Like what we've seen, what we've heard, how this could work. What does this mean? What are we going to do? How can we do this for us? How can we help other troopers? I mean, we're just blown away.
You mean Crace wasn't talking about wrestling?
Well, he might have been talking about that too.
Yeah, I remember that about him. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He's going to be on the show eventually. He just don't know it yet.
He'd be a great one too.
Yes.
Yeah. So although we realized we were a long way from PCIS, we had a lot of other steps to do before we got to PCIS. So we came back, we wrote a lot of information down. We proposed it to the staff, and we kind of got into committee phase. And so we were super excited about that, right? And so our committee phase just kept going on. They put some other people on the committee, and there was a lot of discussion, a lot of cussing and carrying on, right? Because we were definitely for it. We couldn't get everybody on board about peer support, right? Because it was new.
And it was a change.
Right?
And
it was a change. And listen, cops don't do so well with change.
Especially cops in leadership.
And listen, as much as people don't always like to hear this, when you start talking about some of these old crusty people who say, well, this is the way we've always done it.
Yep.
I say, you know what? We used to shit in outhouses too, but we don't do that anymore.
This is
right.
True.
So there's better ways to do things, and there's new ways. And you got to try. You got to try. So we were in committee phase for quite a while. Now, here's what's crazy, Sarge. And I say this to people, and they think I'm maybe a little crazy. Fast forward, we're in committee phase for a long time. Fast forward, what was the big thing that happened in Missouri?
Oh, yeah. There's a whole lot of rioting going on after an incident.
Yeah, in Ferguson, Missouri, right? Which is like, this big.
Yeah.
But the silver lining for our peer support team was Ferguson. And here's why. We sent hundreds of troopers to Ferguson, Missouri for days, multiple times. And we realized we didn't do anything for them when they came back. And now we were starting to see that some guys were struggling because it was terrible.
I believe
it was a terrible place for them. And, they went to this and they left their families at home. They left their kids at home. They missed holidays. They missed football games and basketball games with their kids. Their spouses were worried about them. They were worried about themselves. They were worried about their brothers and sisters that they were there with. And we didn't do much for them. And so all of a sudden the patrol says, oh shit, we got to do something, right? So that was the turning point for our peer support team. And after that, the colonel at the time signed off on our peer support team, which was fantastic. We were super excited. I mean,
yeah,
like happy dance, right? Here was the downside. They said, okay, do what you need to do. And we were like, we don't have anybody to do that because we hadn't trained any peers yet. but we had some contacts, the great folks down in the southern part of the country that we had met. And I mean, there were so many guys. We started making a few phone calls, and we had so many guys volunteer to come up. And between South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, Georgia, and I want to say even Texas, they sent us 14 people, and those guys spent the whole week here, and we traveled all over the state doing debriefings and peer support for the troopers that had gone to Ferguson.
That's awesome.
Oh, I'm telling you, Sarge, I still get goosebumps when I think about that, because I remember I had to drive a van to go pick those guys up at the airport, and I was never so thankful for that help. And just those guys were like, sure, no problem, but it was a big deal to us. It was a really big deal to us.
Oh, I believe it. That's one thing that you see with a lot of traumatic events. I mean, no matter how small or how big they are, there's always some kind of silver lining that comes out of it for the positive. So I'm glad to see. I've heard of little stories here and there about Ferguson, about the local cops, about the St. Louis cops. I mean, all of these stuff going on. And then the troopers, I've heard about National Guardsmen having some silver linings, if you will. So I'm glad to see the State Patrol had something positive come out of it. And maybe that'll spill over into some of them smaller agencies. So.
And I think it is starting to. It's a little slower with some, right? A lot of it, unfortunately, is a little bit of manpower issue, a little bit of it's money, but also it's getting people to buy into it, quite frankly. And once you get a few of those folks, some of those key players, right? Listen, when you get a guy who looks like a big bad cop, right? And when I say that, I mean, he's works out and he's outgoing and he works hard and everybody loves him, thinks he's a great guy, and just think he's handling everything perfectly. And he says, hey, peer support helped me. And they're like, what?
Yeah.
And then you get buy-in, right?
Yep. The stigma starts going away, and we see that all the time.
Absolutely. And it's great. I mean, I'm thankful for that, and I'm thankful for those guys. So listen, I could, go on and on, but that was the silver lining. So we were able to get our peer support team up and going. After that, we started training our own peers, and we've been really just kind of going full force.
And I'm
currently,
Go ahead. I was gonna say, I'm sure by now y'all probably lost count on how many call outs and one-on-ones and debriefings. I'm sure y'all have lost count. So how many would you say is on the team with the Missouri State Patrol?
So right now we have about, so I'm going to give you two different numbers. So we have about 80 sworn officers that are peer trained. Then we also have our chaplains, and that's about 20. And then we have a few civilians, and those people, it's kind of a unique thing that we have in our agency. So they're uniformed people, but they're civilians. So there are driver's examiners, our radio operators, our commercial vehicle officers. And so we've got about 20 of those across the state. Now, that sounds like a lot, but our agency statewide, both sworn and civilian, we're at about 3,000 people. And now that's statewide, of course, which makes it, somewhat of a challenge because we're so spread out, obviously.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
but to be so new in it, though, so new into the whole CISM team process, to have 120 like that, that's, and in variety and capacities, that's the big thing. That's actually pretty awesome. So.
And so the first set of peers were trained by Andy Gruler,
Right.
who also helped with our first PCIS, which we did in March of last year.
Oh, wow.
Correction, October of 2018. 2019, excuse me. October of 2019 was our first PCIS. Now, we were supposed to have 2 of them in 2020, but unfortunately COVID canceled both of those.
Yeah, it's canceled a lot around here too with it too. And we are hating it because
Yes.
we know there's a lot out there hurting that are needing it right now. And half of them are knocking on our door saying, hey, when are y'all going to do one?
I know we've got a waiting list now. And we're supposed to have one in March of this year. So fingers crossed, right?
That's right.
Let's hope that goes through. So Andy came and taught our first set of peers, and then the patrol, because I'm an instructor and because I had already been through basic and advanced, both in individual and group crisis, the natural process really was for me to become the instructor. So then I did the second 2 trainings for peer support for our team members. And then I also teach that to other agencies now. And I've been called on 3 other times to teach that to other agencies, which is a lot of fun. I love teaching the class. The other component that we have, I forgot about this, is our mental health professionals. So we hooked up with the Missouri Coalition for Behavioral Health, and they have about 20 mental health professionals all throughout the state that we've also trained.
And that's a huge component because a lot of times you don't see that, but most people, and you'll agree, I know, because I already know your mindset with this, but when you're looking at the guys that are beating the streets, and then you're looking the mental health people that are about 4 rungs up the ladder, the peer teams and the CISM teams are typically rungs 1, 2, and 3 that are connecting the dots. Sometimes they don't have to go all the way up to the 4th rung. Sometimes they just got to go up 1 or 2 rungs, but there is a connection. It's always great to have that resource in your back pocket as a team. So kudos. I'm telling you, for such a young team per se, and especially one that's so spread out, because Missouri is huge.
We are.
That's awesome. I'm stoked. I'm proud of y'all.
Well, thank you. And I tell you, what's been great is we divided the state up into regions. And so by doing that, and I'm one of the regional coordinators, I go and I get all the peers together, my mental health professionals, my chaplains, and we get together about every 5 or 6 months. So just a couple of times a year, but we get together and we do, we just have some fellowship. We discuss like how we're doing, like we talk about how we all are. I mean, it's like a whole day thing, but we talk about, what's going on and, techniques that have worked. We also talk about, debriefings and peer support contacts and just kind of refresh, because not everybody is making the same amount of contacts. So, those that are making a lot of contacts based on, maybe what they're or where they're at or what they've experienced, they've got that experience, but others maybe don't have as many contacts. So we just try to make sure that they remember, the steps and the skills that they need when they do.
Well, having the different roles of people trained in this is awesome. Have y'all looked at the possibility of training spouses?
We have 2. I forgot about those. I'm glad you mentioned those.
There you go.
We do have two spouses, and they both have attended PCIS and our peer support training, and we've utilized both of them.
That's awesome. That's what you got to do.
Yeah. I would love to get more spouses. It can be tough, Sarge, like families, a lot of times both people work or they have kids. And so sometimes it's hard for them to be able to be away for the training,
Oh yeah,
for
we
3
see
or
that
4
too.
days.
We see that too.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, we do have people that are interested too. Unfortunately, again, part of it now is with the pandemic, trying to get everybody together is a challenge.
Yeah, we have training sessions around here that we coordinate, and I'm gonna tell you, we typically were doing anywhere from 35 to 40 people a class, and we know how strong and how important that training is. And when we took those 6 months off at the beginning of the pandemic, we felt powerless, and we started scaling back the numbers, spreading the seats out, saying, "Hey, we're gonna diffuse these oils. Everybody's got hand sanitizers issued. I mean, all kinds of stuff. We want to make sure people can come here and feel safe and get the training because the training is that important." So I'm glad you said that, and I hope y'all are doing whatever you can to get the more people trained, because you know as well as I do, we got to have them.
We do. And I actually have a session coming up in February. And same thing, I said, okay, listen, I can't have 40, so let's do 20. And, we'll just be spread out a little bit more, and I'll put hand wipes in there and give you an extra 5 minutes on breaks and, give everybody plenty of time. But same thing, I'm very passionate about it. And I just don't want to see it fall off.
Absolutely.
So,
I don't think it'll ever fall off. I will agree. However, we want to keep that train going forward. We want to keep taking care of the guys because they're still going to be exposed. And I say guys around here, the guys mean the guys and the gals.
the same thing here.
But the train does not slow down for the pandemic. It still affects us. If not, the pandemic might have even caused even more mental strain on relationships, on job performance. I mean, you name it, it's just an added stress more than anything. And that's if you don't catch it.
That's one of the things that the guys I work with now. So as an instructor, we're still trying to train recruits, and the pandemic has created this time where we're keeping recruits even on the weekends now.
Oh,
which
wow.
then that adds stress, to their spouse or significant other. And then depending on what your class is as an instructor, you may be teaching 7 days in a row, which gets exhausting and stressful. And then, all of us still have families at home too, right? So you're right. The pandemic's created a whole nother set of stressors for us. And I have to say this about the guys I work with. We give each other a hard time. You know how that goes, right?
Oh, yeah.
But they joke about how I'm the only female on staff, but they joke about how they never realized until I got there, and how, with all of us working together, just how important it was for us to have these conversations. Because when we all get really busy and we're going a million directions and we don't get the opportunity to sit down as a group and just talk and, even complain a little bit, they say, man, it just, I didn't realize how important it was that I had that until I didn't have it. And not that they didn't have it before I got there, but they didn't really think about it as much as what they do now.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I keep saying, listen, guys, when we're going a million directions and we're stressed, don't forget, you've still got, to take care of yourself. Make sure you're eating good, make sure you're sleeping when you can, drinking water. You got a spouse or significant other at home, so don't forget about that relationship. Your kids, right? And all that's, part of the process of really making sure that we're doing what we need to do for ourselves and for each other.
Well, absolutely. Well, that's awesome. I'm gonna tell you, I'm glad I was able to get you on the show, because this is
Me too.
not that you haven't brought something different to the table, but you brought a different perspective to the table about the same topic that we've talked about for several shows now. I'm very appreciative for you being one of my friends, especially one of my friends that's out of town, and it's going to end up being one of my friends that I'm going to convince that the camping and the fishing on this side of the United States is pretty good too. So you're going to
Well,
have to come out this way and camp, and we'll meet halfway or something. But
yeah, so it's funny. That's on my list for 2021 is to come out that direction. So
we've got
ready for
we've got
be
some
ready
great
for football.
campgrounds. I will definitely fill you in on some trips we got coming up, and maybe you can jump in on one. So
Yeah, that'd be awesome. That'd be awesome. It's, as I said earlier, I am in a relationship. My boyfriend and I, we both love just to, relax and enjoy each other's company and that of good friends. And we have a puppy that we just got. We had a dog. We loved that dog. We took him everywhere, and he was killed tragically. And so we were questioning, oh, do we get another one? But we loved having a dog with us when we camp and going fishing and stuff. So we got another one. So it's just us two and our dog. So we'll pack up and head your direction and have a good old time.
sounds great. Well,
Yeah.
listen, I like to close out shows on a positive note, and I want to throw the ball in your court. I want you to take us home with something, a positive note, whether it's a Bible verse or positive story from your past. I mean, what you got for us? Close us out.
I think, Sarge, the thing that I would just always say is there's always someone that cares for you, whoever you are, right? I have parents, I have a son, I have friends. And so no matter who you are, there's always somebody out there that cares for you and is there for you with whatever it is going on, and would be happy and grateful if you came to them, if you ever needed something. So I always say, even to my recruits, you may think because I've yelled at you and been hard on you for these last 6 months, I am still someone that cares about you. And if you ever need anything, I'm always here, always here. And if I can't help you, I know a lot of people that are able to in some way. So there's always somebody out there that wants to help.
That's awesome. You know what? I greatly appreciate you being my friend, for one, and thank you for coming on to the show. Look forward to spreading this word out, and this is awesome. Troas, I am so thankful for you. So thank you again for coming on the show. I hope you have a blessed 2021, and I hope our paths cross in a campground very soon.
Yes, me too. Thanks, Sarge, and I appreciate you having me on. I look forward to more conversations with you soon.
Sounds good. Thank you. Thanks again for listening, friends. Let me tell you, we are greatly appreciative of your support of the SOS show, the Striped Onion show, and we are just as grateful for the friends we have inside our CISM network. Don't forget to share today's SOS call on your social media platforms. That is critical to getting the word out. And also make sure to leave some comments on whichever platform you listen to us on. We will respond to you. Visit our website at some point, thesosshow.com, and check it out. See what we have there. Sign up for the email notifications about shows and events we have coming up in the future. This is all about the first responders, about their support circles. So we want to make sure that it is impactful. And until next time, we hope everyone has a great day and a great week. Y'all stay safe out there, and God bless.